Hello, and welcome to Presenting, a podcast where we chat about various topics related to role playing games, typically Paizo products such as Pathfinder and Starfinder, but also others. I'm John Godek, and with me today is John Curtin. Welcome to the podcast.
Happy to be here, John. I'm really excited to talk Starfinder.
Yeah, I love Starfinder. I'm excited to talk it as well. John is a writer and educator living outside of Boston, Massachusetts, who has authored several Starfinder scenarios and sections of Starfinder hardcovers, in addition to the Starfinder Facts blog. He has backgrounds in music, robotics, and the outdoors, and is always looking for new ways to have adventures in the real world and in the realms of make believe. When he's not reading, writing, or gaming, he can be found enjoying a craft beer or experimenting in the kitchen. You can follow him on his personal account on Twitter, and that's at Curtin_writes. Or for further Starfinder tomfoolery, look for him at Starfinder Facts. So at Starfinder Facts. All right. So, John, I see you're enjoying a beverage there.
Yes. Today we have Greylock from Greater Good, place over by Worcester.
Nice. Yeah.
Their claim to fame is that they are an imperial only place. So everything is 8% or higher. This happens to be their 12%er. So
wow. Very good.
It's delicious, but just one.
Yeah, we were originally scheduled to record this on St. Patty's Day. Mm-hmm. And I remember you agreed as long as you could have a Guinness while we're doing that. And I said, oh, that's fine. I'll have one as well. But then we got postponed for various reasons. So it's changed up a little bit there.
Well, so obviously I'm out of Guinness now. So this just has to suffice.
Okay. So, John, can you talk to us a little bit about how you got started as a freelance author?
Yeah. So my freelance writing kind of segued directly from my experience in organized play. I started a really long time ago, would have been 2006.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So season 2 showed up with a rogue who was dead before level 5. But doing organized play traveled with me because I started playing up in Vermont. We and my wife moved for her to go and get like further credentials and a master's degree. So I started playing in New Hampshire and in the Boston, Massachusetts, like metro region. And then Starfinder came out, and Starfinder like really inspired me. Just the setting and the lore and the the writing was top notch. So it just sort of sparked all of these ideas. Mm-hmm. So I made the Starfinder Facts Twitter to take my own Douglas Adams, Terry Pratchett infused sense of humor and start making up silly facts about like Isoki cuisine. So about a year later, because I was so involved in the like excellent like Boston Metro Region Lodge, and the like New Hampshire, Vermont Lodge, I was like, I should go to PaizoCon. I should really go to PaizoCon. It just makes sense. I want to go. So while I was there, I made myself a little hoodie for Starfinder Facts with a bad Photoshop, the drift mallard. It's a duck from deep space, and it's like, CR22 or something, because I think that's hysterical. And was having a blast at PaizoCon with that. But one of the conversations I had was my friend Natalie Kurtzner, a former guest of the podcast, was already writing for Paizo, and so introduced me to a couple people that she knew at the company. And I had a conversation with Joe Piscini in which I completely put my foot in my mouth and made it seem like I was like too busy, like wouldn't be able to write. Wow. So when I was sitting in the airport on the way back, I messaged Joe going, hey, I think I recall the words that came out of my mouth, but I would 100% be interested. Like, my job's busy, I'll fit it around. Um, and so he didn't have any work available, but he sent my name and introduced me to a couple other people, and got my first back matter assignment to make a starship for
Hmm.
Threefold Conspiracy, Book 6.
Cool.
And from there, I just kept going.
Yeah, it's a lot of folks that I've interviewed, and this is, I think it's now my 76th interview of a
Whew.
freelancer that I've done. Yeah, I was going through. I've actually done some interviews of people that were involved in organized play that weren't
Mhm.
freelancers as well. On top of that, but
Mhm.
I would say the majority of the folks I talk to have met somebody, oftentimes at a convention, and it just gets to talking and they share their love and they're interested and they get their foot in the door. And I actually thought that it was going to be for you Starfinder facts, that
Um,
somebody had read them and was really excited and said, hey, how would you like to make some real facts for us?
so that was a big part of it.
Okay.
Like having the blog, having the
Yeah,
tweets. And I was holding myself for a very long period to having like a daily tweet regimen.
right, right,
So
right.
there would need to be a minimum of like a tweet a day. Oftentimes there were many, many more because that's how
Hmm.
Twitter
Hmm.
works. I mean, I think one of the big things was the blog showed that they're like, well, this guy's clearly not an absolute idiot. Look, he can make a stat block. It's
Yeah,
legible.
right.
And so much of that was just me taking an existing stat block and going through line by line, going, they bolded here. I need to bold here. So if they italics this, then I need to italics that. And getting meticulous about sort of the style.
Right.
So the Starfinder Facts was definitely sort of my pre-interview where they could
Hmm.
look at it and go, oh, interesting.
Hmm. Yeah,
Obviously,
having a
none of that
right.
stuff's publishable, but
Yeah, having a writing sample though. Yeah, for
hmm.
them to see. Do you know who Jessica Catalan is?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
We've been in a couple of project servers together.
yeah, yeah.
I'm pretty active on Discord within like Paizo communities. So,
Right, 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 right.
um, and I've said I'm interested for more Starfinder Society scenarios. We'll see one day
Yeah,
if my name's showing up on something
yeah.
else.
So I was going to mention this. So she's a developer now doing
Hmm.
the Starfinder Society scenarios for organized play. She got started with a blog as well, and it's just the developers randomly saw her blog
Oh yeah,
and
she
then
was
said, "Hey,
D
yeah,
twenty
D20
diaries.
Diaries."
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and she was just doing reviews of a lot of different things, a lot of D20 games,
Yeah.
and a lot of them D&D, not even Paizo products, and they just saw it and connected. So you can't underestimate the value of putting yourself out there like that in whatever
Yes.
form. I think in the form of tweets, though, this is the first time I've heard that.
And like the tweets are primarily trying to pack a joke into
Right,
280 characters. And if it's not a
right,
joke, it's at least some like witticism or bon mot, like
right,
something to go like, huh, and then scroll past because it's kind of an ephemeral art form, right?
right, right, right.
Um, the blog was when I was like, I should make some actual rules. Like, and so I
Mm.
think I don't even remember what the first couple ones were. There was the uplifted raccoon. There was
Mm.
a lot of very bad Photoshop to make like like that's kind of the overall vibe of the thing is it's
Yeah,
informal. It's a space to goof off while like treating the lore with respect.
right.
If I'm going to like have Obadiah do something, it's going to be like because it's Obadiah wants to smash things, not because like I'm gonna get a dunk on Obadiah. So
Right. Neat, neat. Well, your background I find to be kind of interesting. You did work in robotics,
yeah,
and now you're working in education, K through 12, right?
K through 5 right
K
now.
through 5. Okay.
Yep, little
Yeah.
little guys. Yeah,
Wow.
I have a very weird resume, John.
Hmm.
So I was a music education major as a college student. Decided that I really like kids and I loved music, and teaching music to kids was maybe a bridge too far. So I started working at my part-time job full-time, which was at an after-school program. Did that for about 4 years in Vermont with my weekly Wednesday night Pathfinder Society games to keep me sane. And then when I moved down to the Boston area with my wife, girlfriend at the time, decided that I was going to try switching careers. And so I got into software and then software sales, and wound up just through a freak chance. A family friend was an owner in a robotics company, and they just needed man hours. They needed like hands on to book things. So I joined this company with my title literally being fixer. Not of the robots. That was like
Yeah,
a little
yeah.
past my technical abilities, but scheduling, vendors,
Mhm.
contracts, just sort of take the things that need to get done and get them done. So I had like a 2 year stint in a robot factory. I did wind up building a robot while I was there, just one. Sold. It's, as far as I know, still off trundling around in Canada somewhere.
What kind of robots were they making?
They're called a holonomic platform. So
Mm.
this was more or less like a, people who are watching the video can sort of see my hand motions voguing here. But I want to say it was like 2 feet by 3 feet, maybe. It looks kind of like if you turned your Roomba into like a slow steel step stool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the entire point was to either have a human load it with stuff and it would take things places, or for the advanced roboticist to take off the plates and connect other applications to it.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time I wound up leaving the company, they had people who were integrating like robotic arms that would have their own sets and programming. So their focus was on reactive navigation. So this
Right.
robot, if
Wow.
you walked in front of it, would stop,
Mm-hmm.
figure out like how to get around you, and then zoop and keep going to its intended path.
Oh, so wasn't like the Boston Robotics dogs and stuff that they're doing, right?
No, no, nothing like that. This was a little more utilitarian and a little less flashy.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I see, I when you talk about that, I imagine like a lot of times you see in science fiction movies, in labs and stuff, they have a slow moving robot. They just put something on as it's going to the next station, right? Oh, yeah, these
Yes.
all these samples need to be delivered there and things like that. So that's that kind of
Yeah,
idea.
that's more or less exactly the use case. And they had a couple cool things built in. So like, um, you could call it to certain places with like setting it up. So to say like, I need this robot. I need a robot in the loading dock, and you press the button, and it would robot would path its way to you, and then you'd say,
Hmm.
"Great, you're loaded now. Go to research lab A," and it would path its way there.
Right, right. Well, neat. No, that actually sounds really cool. And you actually got to make one, or you had to make one.
I got to build one because, as the non-engineer on the team,
Yeah.
they said, "All right, we want to test how effective our instructions are. So
Oh, right,
you're
right.
our guinea pig as the neophyte on the team."
Got it.
And
Got it.
it worked. I built a robot.
Nice, nice. So I imagine that this work in robotics probably has some influence in your writing for Starfinder.
If you look
Uh,
at the tweets, there's definitely a distinct robot period in
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Um, yeah, go ahead.
What about your work with the K through 5 folks? How's that relate to your writing?
um, in a roundabout way, for sure. I would say that a lot of my GMing first
Hmm.
was informed by working with kids, because when you have like a room of 65 kids and you need to get their attention, um, you you need to be entertaining.
Right.
So a big part of it is vocal inflection. What do you say? and specifically, like, how do you say things? Because clarity is really important with kids. If they don't know what direction you're giving, it's really hard for them to
Hmm.
follow that direction. Same could be said of certain players. If you want them to do a certain thing, you need to make sure you
Yeah.
say it in a way that they understand what's going on. Um, so I, as a GM, I tend towards like big broad motions and streamlining things to like what's the special part of this scene, of this monster, of this NPC. um which then when I'm writing, I try to keep that same mindset of
Hmm.
like what's going to make this scene special, like what's going to make players go, oh, that, I remember that.
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
that's what always stood out to me as a player, and that's what would make a session really good when I was GMing, was finding that special ingredient and making it pop.
Hmm. Now, I might be wrong on this because I'm
Yeah.
going from a couple years ago in memory. 219, was that Return to Sender?
Um, Return to
Or
Sender was Natalie's on her own.
okay,
219
okay.
was Truth Keepers.
Oh, Truth Keepers. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. No, I because I remember she had written that, and I didn't know if it was with you
Hmm.
because there's a really cool thing in there. I was going to ask you if you were involved
Yeah.
in that. Do you know what's in that?
Yeah, Return to Sender, I remember. So one of the ways that I got to become friends with Natalie was her
Yeah.
running that scenario and her being like,
Oh,
I'm an
okay.
author, and me being like,
Yeah.
that's super cool.
Yeah. Okay. So there's there's a boon that comes with that thing, and there's a creature you find in there. Do you remember what that
Yes.
is?
Yes, I
Yeah.
do.
I don't know what you call it, is a squid shark, or I don't remember if it's squid shark or shark squid.
Sharktopus.
Yeah,
Um,
sharktopus. Yeah.
Yes, the surviving specimen boon,
Yeah.
which to this day I've been out of Starfinder Society play, unfortunately, more or less since the pandemic, but
Mm-hmm.
that is remains my favorite boon. Even as I'm like going through and skimming scenarios, I'm like,
Okay.
sorry,
Yeah.
I don't know if it beats Sparky, which was
Yeah.
Natalie's name for the cannon in her head, the head cannon,
Yeah.
surviving specimen.
Yeah. 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 So I was going to ask you about that because it seems like, oh man, if you were dealing with kids, that'd be like a perfect thing to get.
Yeah. So I don't know if you recall in Truth Keepers,
Ooh.
there is a direct callback to the surviving specimen. Um,
I think so. Is that the one? So now I'm trying to remember. Is that the one where it's bothering Razadon? Or
no,
okay, that's
no,
something
I
else.
remember that
Yeah.
too. That's a great
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's I think that was one of the um
That's like 3 seasons ago. How
I
can I
know,
remember
it's
that?
ages ago. No, I think
Uh,
the sharktopus was crawling around someone's legs in the scenario where you're meeting all of the first seeker candidates.
oh, maybe so.
Maybe. I don't, again, that was like 3 seasons ago.
You
I'm
know,
amazed
okay.
we remember it at all.
So I'm gonna give you something else. It's also in one of the interactive specials.
Mm.
If you if you have it, if you have it, it something you can one
Oh
time it could randomly
yes.
push the right button for you when you're doing
I do
something.
remember that. Yeah, so
I
the
thought that
Boston
was
Lodge
great.
is always very
Yeah.
proud whenever
Yeah.
Sparky shows up
Yeah. Yeah.
in any situation.
Yeah, I've met a
Um,
couple folks, like John and his wife.
yeah,
I met,
yeah. Oh,
yeah,
they're great. I haven't seen them
yeah.
in a little while either.
Vidi, that's her name,
Vidi,
I think?
yeah.
Vidi, yeah. Yeah, no, I haven't seen it because I was seeing them. I was doing the con circuit for a while, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
seeing them at multiple cons, and so playing together and doing stuff. Great, kind of great. Anyway, let's get back to this.
Yes, yes.
You know, you've done quite a bit here for Starfinder, and including your
Hmm.
Starfinder facts, and I know you've probably had some other projects. What advice do you have for people interested in getting involved in freelance writing, or even if they just want to start a blog?
Yeah. So one thing that I did that was really helpful. I mean, like we already touched on it. Step one, you just got to do it.
Yeah.
Jump in with your feet. Having anything out there is better than not having anything out there. And if you put stuff out there, like you will gain fans, which is kind of amazing to me. Like going on the
Mm.
internet and putting what is essentially my love letter to like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but
Yeah,
slapped
yeah,
on
yeah,
a Starfinder paint job.
yeah.
Um, like just kept accumulating like more and more follows, and people would like and start interacting. I'm like, oh, cool. So go out there and do it, and you'll never know what sort of feedback that you get, and you try your best, and you take your hits, and you learn your lessons, and it'll just keep getting better. Um, the other big thing that I did, just because of the way that my particular meat computer operates, is I had a lot of self-inflicted like guidelines or deadlines
Mm.
on myself, where for a little while I was tweeting at least one like Starfinder fact a day. It had to be
Mhm.
something that I came up with myself. It couldn't be like I'm replying to people. There were no like
Right.
shortcuts there. And I was doing one Starfinder facts blog post a month.
Mhm.
Um, because if I wasn't holding myself to that, I started other like personal blogs in the past and they just went by the wayside. So
Mhm. Mhm.
I was like, if this is something that I'm going to take seriously, I got to like get to it. So I did that for, I can look at the blog and check, but to my memory, it was about like a year, 11 months worth of like pushing out something every month. And then the pandemic hit and everyone's brains turned to mush. And that was one of the things that I sort of lost during there is it was really hard to be like quirky, funny, creative
Mm. Mhm.
while in this like place of despair. And I was back in person in June of 2020. So
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, we were
Yeah.
around the kids 40 hours a week with masks
Mm.
on
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
at the grind. So I wound up sort of mothballing the Starfinder Facts blog as an unfortunate casualty. Although I kept the Twitter account, I dialed back some. So at this
Mhm.
point, I'm back to tweeting during the weekdays, but I schedule them out like sometimes weeks in advance. I'll just
Mhm.
sort of build up a stockpile, and then a couple of weeks I'll go by and I'll go, oh, time for more nonsense, and slapdash some more things that pop into my head as they come.
Neat, neat.
Yeah.
So now that the pandemic is waning, I'm not sure if it is or not. What's going on with you? So, what kind of cool things are
Yeah.
you working on now?
There's a couple things I can't talk about. But I
Ooh,
have things coming out for the Drift Crisis book that's coming out in
nice.
May.
Yeah, I'm
I'm
excited.
super excited to see that one
Yeah.
like out in the wild. Writing it was a
Hmm.
lot of fun.
Hmm.
And I can't talk about what it is yet, but I am hopeful that people will enjoy what I put in there. And I know people are going to enjoy what some of the other authors were putting in. This is a
Hmm.
big event. There's a lot of great ideas kicking around there. So seeing that get released is really exciting. And I can t- let me confirm before I open my big mouth.
Okay, that's always safe. Now I'm gonna have to go back and look at what you worked on for Drift Crisis.
Yes. And I can say that I worked on Interstellar Species,
Oh,
coming out
okay,
in October. As of right now, we'll
nice.
see what the supply chain does.
Right, right, right,
Um,
right.
and Interstellar Species was like the work that I was the most proud of for a little while
Hmm.
until one of the projects that I can't talk about. Um, so this one, Interstellar Species, is going to expand a lot of these races that only got like 2 pages in a
Right,
bestiary or
right, right.
even less. I think some of the, I again, I'm going off the rails. I can't
All right, no, that's
speculate too
fine.
much, but
That'll be exciting. That'll be exciting to see. So it sounds like you kept your hand in Starfinder. Have you done any Pathfinder work?
I have not done any Pathfinder work. Part of that was I was a first edition player, and
Right.
I had my
Yeah.
venture captain through organized play, and we
Hmm.
put down the Whispering Tyrant, and I went, okay, I have to learn a new rule set. I don't know if I have time for that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but a couple other of the contributors have been kind enough to like let me into some play by post games, so I'm getting my
Mhm.
second edition chops like wetted that way. A shout
Yep.
out to Randall
Yeah.
Meyer for his help with
Oh,
that.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, and like I'm absolutely a huge Pathfinder fan. I've been actually one thing that I have been doing is I have like my wife agreed that she would try playing D&D or role playing games because of my
Mhm.
interest.
Nice.
So we got like a group of friends who were equally interested, and I've been they aren't ready to make the leap to like a piezo system, but
Mhm.
I've been having them play like Pathfinder Society or like Paizo Adventures that
Mhm.
I like hack the fifth edition rules to. So we did the original Ruby Phoenix tournament this past
Mhm.
summer. I have a group that's doing a bunch of like Pathfinder Society scenarios because I really want them to hate Grandmaster Torch like I hate Grandmaster Torch.
Yeah.
It's important that I share that with people. Um, so I've been like still consuming as much Paizo writing as I can because there's so many good creatives that are putting out this awesome content that I'm like, even if
Mhm.
I don't get to like necessarily play the second edition or the Starfinder as much as I would like to, I can still take this world and this lore and have a blast
Right.
with it. It's
Right.
been great.
Awesome. Well, John, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Oh,
It's really
hang on.
great to have this
I
chat. Wait.
remembered one other cool thing that I have been
Oh,
doing, and I
okay. Yeah.
totally forgot. So one thing that I recently did was start a Patreon.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, barely factual productions is a
Mhm.
direct spin-off of Starfinder Facts, the facts
Okay.
on facts. It's
Yeah, yeah.
and a we have two whole patrons. We're very happy for that.
Nice.
And gonna use that to as I am sort of rebuilding a creative process and discipline, something that as a you know musician I used to have, but
Mhm.
as a writer I kind of came to it piecemeal. So this
Mhm.
is a investment in myself and my process. But we're going to be putting forth Starfinder content. I released, this has been 2 weeks now. So my patrons got their first piece of Starfinder lore from us today. A couple of automated magical starships for low level situations.
Nice.
Um, so we are releasing that. So our Patreon is Barely Factual Productions. It is starting out as sort of rebuilding the Starfinder Facts franchise back to its previous strength. So when we have
Mhm.
enough subscribers, we'll start putting out monthly blogs again. If anyone is interested in that, or if people really don't want that to happen again, avoid the Patreon if at all possible.
Okay.
I think I offended a lot of people's ears when I made the help D dance. So
Mhm.
we may have scared some people off that way. We'll see.
Well, actually, I will have to definitely check that out. I was gonna ask you about that because I talked to Natalie about it before, but I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
sure. I wasn't sure the state of it, so I didn't wanna bring it
Yeah,
up. So,
barely factual
yeah.
productions had some growing pains.
Mhm.
Initially, an idea that we were going to be doing like adventure writing and have like other writers involved.
Mhm.
And then in 2020, I don't know what happened. It just sort of fell off
Yeah.
everyone's radar.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
so this second iteration is again having learned my lessons and taken my licks. Starting this one solo.
Yep.
We're just gonna put out words until the words stop coming. So building our way
Well,
back.
well, I look forward to that. Again, John, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast today.
John, thank you so much for having us on the podcast.